3, 2, 1. Hello everyone, welcome to Simulation. We have a very awesome episode coming at you. We're going to be talking about transformative technology, emotional well-being, health, joy. We have Nichol Bradford joining us today. Thank you.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on to our show.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And it's been a long time of pursuing transformative technology now for you. It's been 4 years.
Yeah, this is our 4th year for the lab. And, it's exciting now because it's like the world is catching up to what we've been pointing out. And that's really exciting to see the level of interest globally from people in technology for mental health, well-being, and joy.
Yes, and what a triad there, mental health, well-being, and joy. Because the world, we've really got to figure out how to maximize our own potential, the collective potential, and those three are right there at the center of thyself, understanding thyself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We sort of think about, the way to think about it is human psychology is a spectrum. And so on one side, the way we think about mental health, it includes things like stress, anxiety, depression. And in the middle is the human condition. It's also where social emotional skills really come into play. So that's happiness, loneliness, connection. Meaning making is one of the most important skills that you can have for success in life. And also the ability to establish, connection, which has a great deal to do with trust, self-trust, trust of others. These are actually all skills, including like compassion. Compassion is also a skill. The entire, the entire Buddhist literature is about the trainability of compassion. So there's all these things that are teachable, trainable skills that support social emotional well-being. And then the far side is, where it gets really interesting too, which is on the expansion of the mental and emotional capacity of humans. And that's where, it's really about like, what more could we do? How much more can we feel? How much more can we understand about ourselves and one another, and what happens when more of us are wired that way and able to connect on that level? How much, all of this, how much creativity would we have? How much more innovation and ingenuity? How many more problems that humanity is facing could we solve? And so, within that psychological framework, there are technologies for every piece and products for every piece that people have made or are in the process of making, leaning towards understanding. And so it's quite exciting, this idea that you can, and kind of radical for many, this idea that you can, that we can use technology not just to make things go faster or to, have someone come pick us up in a car that we don't know, but that we could actually use technology to understand ourselves better, to connect more deeply, and actually to amplify our humanity. Yes. And so that's a big premise of transformative tech.
Yes, I love the way that you describe that, and I don't think I've actually heard psychology kind of put on that sort of a spectrum before. So you have on one side the really bad anxiety or depression. It's kind of like one of the worst sort of states that someone could be in, and then in the middle is kind of this like happiness, sadness, etc., kind of like different emotional states, and then the far side is just this like explosion of understanding yourself and helping other people understand themselves and figuring out how to just synergize humanity together. So I love that sort of a spectrum, and I think we have some really good slides in here to kind of show this as well, but you also kind of taught me about on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You show that a lot of what the work of transformative technology is how do you, these basic physiological needs are met, and then what happens above that?
Yeah, and that's really important too, because if you think about everything that you've heard about what's going to happen with the future of work and what tasks within jobs are going to be gone. So, it's clear from all the statistics or all the forecasts that nobody has any idea You know, it's like in terms of the future of work or the rise of automation, the difference between an optimist and a pessimist is how long it's going to take, not if it's going to happen.
Yeah, and how prepared we are.
And how prepared we are. And so, you know, one of the biggest forecasts that I've seen is that 47% of all tasks within current jobs will be automated.
By 2050, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what that means is that, you know, where we used to, a lot of work is very rote, where we used to spend a lot of time doing, we're actually going to have to spend a lot of time being. And so that's being creative, being collaborative, being communicative, you know, and we're not good at that. We don't teach that in our society formally.
Yeah.
It is, you're expected to pick it up from your culture, or the culture. Maybe you pick it up from your family, maybe you pick it up from a mentor. Yeah. So it's like we kind of have this crazy situation where the future requires people who are good at being, not just so that they're employable, but also so that they can handle change. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, what was that one quote that change is faster than it's ever been and it's slow as it's ever going to be ever again. So one, so you can work, and two, so you can handle the change. The skills that come, you know, that are required for that, as a society, globally, we don't teach.
Yep. Yeah, I was just yesterday observing, just human watching, people watching, and I was just seeing people in cognitively repetitive tasks that were just, they looked like they wanted to creatively explode and explore, and that they were unable to. And that restriction and limitation on the human spirit due to the pressures of the economic system drive me nuts too.
Yeah.
And that's our future, is figuring out how to unleash that creativity out of people. But like you said, we're not teaching it. How do we teach it across the world in the age of automation? How do we get ready for that? Yeah. I'm really happy that we have you, and you're making a big push in this direction through a couple different things. You know, we have the conference, the academy, the lab, these three sort of pillars of transformative technology. This is kind of like, this is the hierarchy that we were talking about earlier. And, you know, here, love and belonging, self-esteem, self-actualization, self-transcendence. And, you know, this is something that I want to, you know, break down with you more. It's closer to the end of, you know, of what, or we're in the middle-ish of what we're talking about. Let's see if we can also, I'm just interested if we can even get through some of like the major ones in here. But
does that show up on the web?
It
Are
does.
they seeing that?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it does. It shows up on both at the same time.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And usually we even have it show on the TV in studio. We're working on, because we got, you know, Eddie comes in as when Ron is away as well, and we're still working on making sure that everything is like, you know, is good. Awesome. and that we got it. Shout out to Eddie, our producer and director.
Yay, Eddie!
Yay, Eddie! Woo-hoo. So you listed Homo Deus here as you know, exactly, just like the next part of the human agenda. We were talking about this earlier, kind of like the left to right on the scale of psychology.
Yeah, these are all the things that are going up. Like, these things are going up all over the world: stress, anxiety, depression, suicide. People are having a really hard time with change. And it's more than, and you've talked to people who are sort of, you know, really work in that area day to day, it's more than just higher levels of observation. You know, there's more than that. Now, you know, that doesn't mean that, like, there's probably some things around, you know, the clinical definition of depression used to be sort of like, if you have all these if all these things are going on, you might be depressed unless you've had a death in the family within 3 months. That's not in there anymore, so maybe there's more people you know, that are getting scooped into these definitions. But then across the board around the world, the overall number of people who are falling into these buckets is higher. So there is something going on. People are having a hard time with change.
A lot of it is compounded also by then the social media culture as well.
Yeah.
And we got a ton of sort of pressure on us about this is what happiness looks like. And then that is constantly pushing down on us and our psyche as. It also is motivating at times to be like, I want to achieve that goal, and then like you can also strive to achieve that goal.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that goes into this, including the example we were talking about earlier of just people being in work that isn't fulfilling to their potential.
Yeah. Yeah, I love this. This is what we call the well-being spectrum, and that you can see like there are some very distinct places where people need support, but there's also so much more about what's possible and about, you know, the ways that we can enhance people's skill sets in order to have, you know, happiness, connection, meaning. You know, I was really inspired by a study that was recently completed on meaning making, and it was an 1.5-hour intervention that was done with middle school, high school, and college students. And it was just an 1.5-hour intervention, and it was done live, you know, human to human, but the teachers of those kids did not know who got the, you know, the meaning-making intervention and who didn't. And so it was done by a couple of universities, and it was set up, you know, of course, around all of the scientific rigor. And the outcome, and then they taught them how to make empowered meaning making, left till graduation of that stage. And the kids who had learned how to make positive meaning making, substantially higher graduation rates, grades, and the willingness to go on to the next step.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when I hear that, I don't necessarily think, okay, we should have these workshops everywhere. I think, why can't Alexa do that?
Yeah, totally.
You know, why can't, you know, the chatbots aren't quite smart enough to do it yet, but why couldn't they? You know, at some point we're all going to have a personalized AI.
Yep.
You know, so it's like, why couldn't the systems around you challenge your thinking?
Yeah, right now the best, well, I think another good example of what you just described, meaning making, is future authoring. Is another good one that kind of pairs together with that. If you just simply at the beginning of the year write down the goals that you want to achieve that year and have some short-term goals month to month, and then have some long-term goals, and then at the end of the year just check in with yourself on how you did on those goals and just author your future in that sense. Write about it and follow through on those goals, be conscientious about it. You have a much more higher likelihood of achieving all the things that you listed there. And then you gave this perfect example of chatbots. We already have, you probably had a bunch of things in your calendar today. And a lot of people watching this have these items in their calendar. And if if maybe in your calendar it said email Nichol, and then your Gmail sees that you didn't email Nichol, rather than needing to go and program tons of notifications into that one calendar event that would then remind you every 15 minutes to try and email you, just have a check-in via your voice at home and just be like, Alan, I've noticed you haven't emailed Nichol yet. And there's so many of these different.
Yeah. Or like, you know, another good example is that, you know, it has been sort of well documented that gratitude makes people happier.
Slow down and meditate for 2 minutes right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so I'll give you an example. So gratitude makes people happier. Now there is a decay curve on gratitude in the sense that you have to actually be grateful for different things.
Yes.
So if you're grateful 4 days in a row for health, on the 4th day, your before and afters, you didn't get quite the bump. So you just need to change it every day, that kind of thing.
There's so many things: your home, your food, your water, your electricity.
Yeah. But for transformative technology, I'll tell you a quick funny story. So a little while ago, I was on a date, and and so the person I was on a date with, his phone rang, and he was like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I have to, take this." And I was like, I meditate a lot, so I was like, "Sure, no problem." And he's always a conscientious person, so I didn't take it badly. And he picks up the phone and he says, "The 3 best things that happened today are," and so he starts practicing gratitude. And I was like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
And it's basically a voice bot that calls him every day at 6 o'clock and has him list and it goes speech to text, and he can then search it. And so, one of the things about transformative technology.
Wait, what is this called?
It's a beta. I don't remember the name.
I love that idea.
Yeah, but it's like
such a good one.
But if you think about, there's things that we know that work, and we can use technology to take the friction out of it. Because, and maybe there's something about, a difference between you writing yourself or something like that. But if it's the difference between you not doing it at all and you doing it a little bit every day, I would take a little bit every day. So, one of the things behind transformative technology also is like, how do we take the friction out of people doing basic things that are already good for them?
And that's exactly right. That you find things like the phone call that comes in and at 6 o'clock every day, and you say the things that you're grateful for, and then you're right, and then it just takes the voice to text and gives you a searchable database. There's millions of other ideas like that
yeah.
I want them all over the world.
Yeah, there's lots of things.
You support a lot of them through your channel.
That's what we do. So what the Transformative Technology Lab does, we have 3 things that we do. The first thing is we do basic research. So we have medical grade EEG, and my co-founder supports, he's a PhD in psychology, and he supports postdoc people who are working on research, and we've got like these medical grade EEG, and they can come through and they have access to it and can do the research, and he helps them with the research. The second thing that we do, and that research is all into sort of like, a particular interest of ours is matching people to the right intervention. And so like our meditation program, our meditation research is about matching people to the right meditation technique. And we can kind of come back to that. But whether it's meditation or some of the big researchers in happiness, people are starting to come to this thing that seems really obvious, but it's just not been sort of proven in a lot of the different intervention categories with science, that different things work for different people. Makes sense, but it's not proven. It's like dogs are empathetic. Like that just came out and everyone's like, yeah, we knew that, but we didn't actually know it, but now we know it, right? So we do that. Then the second thing we do is we create communities. So that's the Transformative Technology Conference. And this is our 4th year. And last year we had over 600 people.
Yes.
And we are the biggest conference for people who want to build these technologies, because the third part of our mission is to support entrepreneurs and innovators, because like my belief and our belief is that sustainable change comes from sustainable businesses.
Yeah.
And so we're all about
That's a good model.
Creating businesses or helping people create businesses. And then the other thing is that, what startups are is that they are experiments. And, this radical idea of using technology for the, inner development of humans, it's actually kind of new. We've been thinking about it for a while, but out there it's kind of, many people are like, wow, it makes sense, but it's new to them. And so there's so many different types of human beings, there's going to need to be many different types of interventions. And we're not going to be able to think of them all, at all. And so, what our efforts around entrepreneurship is about is really sort of like engaging with the, the mind of the world, the brain of the web, all the brilliant people out there who are interconnected, connected to the web, connected to technology, who have real problems in their communities around, whether they're dealing with a human support issue or whether they see young people who don't know what it is they want and don't know how to navigate through to those decisions. So everything, and they say, I want to make something. And so this way, instead of it just being myself and Mikey Siegel and a few other people, there's an army of Jedis out there working on this. So like with our academy, which is the third part, we've had, we're currently accepting applications for the program. Oh yeah, this is our whole ecosystem. We're currently accepting applications for the program, and we have had applicants from over 315 cities.
Nice.
55 countries.
Yes.
Lots of places that you would not expect. And we accept people with companies, and we accept people who are interested, because it's such a new space. I think that, unlike, enterprise SaaS sales software that's been around for such a long time, I think some of the best entrepreneurs in this space are currently working for, they're working at other startups, they're working at big companies,
It's true.
Because they didn't even know they could do this.
Yes.
But this is where their heart is. And so,
Yeah.
So those people are in our program too, are going to be in our program too. And so it's just like it's all, the world is really starting to focus in on this, and there's some other reasons why I think it's all clicking.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what we do. And you're really into this stuff, which is one of the reasons when you were like, hey, come over and talk, I was like, yes.
Yeah. And
because you're all about, you are so interested and have been all about like human possibility, human performance, human potential,
Definitely.
Curiosity,
Definitely.
innovation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to give so many marbles over to the transformative technology side of things. I was just, I was running these thought experiments in my head while you were speaking, and I thought to myself, well, what if humans decided to, as they earned money, to funnel the money rather than in a second car, second house, second boat? What if they funneled it into the entrepreneurs at the Transformative Technology Lab or at the Academy? What if they did that? And what would happen to the results at the lab or to the entrepreneurs at the Academy? How would that maximize the success of all of the flourishing that could happen? What do you really need the second house for, the second car for, the second boat for? I was thinking about that. And then I was also thinking about just, I like the structure of your ecosystem itself, that having the way that the mind is being shaped by the technologies actually objectively measured through things like EEG and through just cutting edge psychologists, neuroscientists, and data scientists, just really being able to make sure that technology is at the cutting edge. And then on this like next pillar of having a congregation of people, of 600 plus people to come out and celebrate this. And this is happening in November this year.
Yeah, November 8th and 9th.
8th and 9th.
In Palo Alto.
Yep, is it at Sophia University again, or?
No, we're actually going to be in a conference location.
A conference location, 8th and 9th.
Yeah,
Okay.
November 8th and 9th, be there. If you want to build technology for the human condition, mental and emotional well-being, this is the only place in the world for you to be.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Good plug. Yeah, 100%. Also, plug link in bio, ttconf.org.
Yeah, ttconf.org.
Link in bio, check that out.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, and there's tons of opportunities for the Academy as well. When does the application for the Academy close?
Yeah, there's a couple more weeks. It closes at the end of August, and then the program starts September 15th to October 15th, and it's completely online. It's no fee, no equity, funded by donors, and the purpose is to find the entrepreneurs and innovators around the world who are working in this space. And we're not, it's not like a traditional online startup program. There's so much good startup content out there. We're not recreating any of that.
Yeah.
We're gonna do things like office hours with fantastic HRV experts.
Yeah.
So like you actually get a chance to
Heart
talk
rate
to
variability.
someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. You actually get a chance to talk to someone who can help you. Or people who have a specific thing about transformative technology. So, an investor and the way that they look at these things. So as you are, learning how to talk to people, what specifically in this space. Or we have someone who's going to, who's done a big overview of startups and is going to, and has a love for transformative tech, and is basically going to outline all the places where companies in this space misstep, which is that's probably one of the most valuable things for the thing, so for people to like understand where other people have made missteps, so they don't have to do it.
Yep.
And that's also one of the things that we want to do, is to really disseminate the information so that people understand the landscape and understand what's been done and what's happening, so that they can go off in a new direction, because an entrepreneur's most important resource is their time, their lifeblood. Like these people, you know, they give so much. You know, they should either sort of knowingly be doing what's been done before because they think that they can do it better and they have a specific thesis why, or charting new territory because there's so much territory to cover. So it's sort of like, you know, it's sort of like going forth.
I love how you are not doing the classic kind of like entrepreneurship accelerator where you're, you know, bringing everybody in. It's just, that's like a much more kind of like classical system, but you're not able to kind of like scale immediately to 65 countries in the world that way.
Yeah.
You know, what you're doing is you built like a 1 month online, and you're going to have different leaders with office hours in these transformative spaces. I really like that. And it's all, you know, not again, you're just not a normal model where it's equity based or we give you your first round of funding based. It's not like that. It's way more based on like, who are you over there in this other part of the world? What is this transformative idea that you have for unleashing human potential, and how can we be of help here in the Valley where we have a massive concentration of smart people that can unlock your maybe some of your ignorance around what is going on with HRV, because we already have done it in so much more detail. Maybe we can ship you out some EEG headsets for you to go and start actually doing more detailed scientific work on what you want to research.
Just connecting you to the right people, because you know you and I have talked about this a little bit, but you know I have a tremendous amount of excitement and optimism, and I'll tell you why in a second. And I also have a tremendous sense of urgency.
Yeah.
The optimism comes from, you know, one can sort of like hope and dream for something as much as you want to, but you really need a confluence of, you know, need, demand, and means for something to take off. And that's what happened in the last, you know, call it a year and a half. On the need side, a lot of it was driven by healthcare cost, people really understanding the impact that stress and anxiety is having on corporate healthcare cost, cities, municipalities. Also, with the rise in healthcare costs and just the changes, you know, in the healthcare system, for example, in the U.S., with a lot of costs going back to people, they're starting to think a lot more preventative, you know, because it's like they might actually not have healthcare coverage. And so people are just like, it's becoming more accepted. And then also the other big thing is that lots of people that people would not expect coming forth and saying, I'm having a hard time, whether it's an entertainer or a entrepreneur, or, you know, the people that, you know, have passed this year from suicide. And so there's just like this understanding of, you know, the human mind, people are having a hard time. And then the second part, and all the cost associated with it. So like stress alone in the US is estimated to be a $350 billion annual cost for corporations.
That's huge.
Yeah, that's just stress. That's nothing else. That's not loneliness, which is, you know, worse for you than obesity. That's just stress on that one thing. Then the second pillar is demand, and demand has everything to do with, you know, behavior, cultural acceptance, and you see some really wonderful things like millennials in the U.S. already today spend a fourth of their disposable income on well-being. You know, and so they're already saying we want this. Other things like in future work studies on them is that they believe that the world should change, or they believe that a lot of the change in the world should happen through business. So they have very high expectations for what's supposed to happen in the companies that they work at. And they're not quite bought into sort of like the way the world, they're looking at their parents, they're like, you're not happy. You know, and so they're not bought into that. I've worked with a lot of millennials, and when I ran World of Warcraft in China, when I operated it, my whole staff
Nichol has 6 years as the director of ops at Blizzard, by the way.
For China, just China.
Just China, but still like, whoa.
And it's like, you know, I find the millennial and younger generation to be, I am so inspired by them. You know, what doesn't work for them is command and control. Like, you can't say, do it because I told you to.
Oh, totally.
Which is, I'm totally fine with that. You know, but if you attach it to their why, then they're the hardest working people I have ever seen.
Yeah.
And so that's showing up in like the way that they're thinking about things. So they're interested in well-being. They already prefer experiences to things. So that's already showing up in how they're spending their money.
Totally.
And so there's this, you know, and they want...
Difty. Have you heard that one yet?
What's that?
Difty. Do it for the Instagram.
Oh.
The experiences over things.
Yeah, totally. And then also I think, you know, I mean, I think when I look at certain people who are, you know, controversial about certain things, you know, that are people who are talking about various structures like cleaning your room and stuff like that. What I think is, well, let's not go into that, but what it says to me is like, it's like the world is searching for a new narrative. People are searching for a new narrative.
That's
about,
a good way to put it.
Like, what is it we're supposed to be doing? And that really ties...
You're pretty tapped into that. I like that.
Yeah, well, and so that ties to the urgency, but it also ties to the future of work and purpose and meaning and transformative technology. Because, you know, and I've kind of gone off a little bit, and I'll circle back to the third reason why I'm excited, which is the means part. And maybe I'll just say that and then come back so I don't go too far.
This has been a great stream of consciousness. Keep it coming. Keep it coming.
So it's need, demand. So we're seeing the demand. The rising generation wants to be happy. They want meaning. They want fulfillment. And it's showing up. And it's global. It's not just the US. When you look at sentiment and stuff like that. Global sentiment. And then the third part is the means. And so a lot of this is driven by exponential technology and, you know, the ability for emotion recognition, behavior recognition, pattern recognition. And we absolutely have to figure out data ownership, privacy, ethics, like all of that stuff like cannot be left to chance.
Yep.
But
urgency.
Yeah, but it's like the assessment power. Like if you, we kind of talked about this before, if you knew as much about yourself as Google and Facebook did, there isn't anything you couldn't do. Like nothing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Why don't we just, I've always wanted to just have that mirrored at me. At least show me who I am. The only way I can see who I am on these platforms is if I go back and look through my photos over the last like 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and it doesn't, what it doesn't do is it doesn't, you know, it's all about UI UX.
It's all about UI UX. And it's a load of poop right now.
Right.
And it's fine. It's like you're scratching the surface of the potential of psychometric profiling being mirrored back towards me. And you have so much potential.
Serving you as opposed
serving
to
me.
Serving you.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. They're just trying to feed us this massive Thanksgiving turkey dinner instead of serving my heart and my mind and my soul. Like, it's totally different. Yeah,
time well spent. Because it's like right now, you know, I love Tristan Harris, and I also I also love Joe Edelman, who is a UX designer, and he's just like blows my mind. He was the person who gave me hope about you know, how we sort of like get out of the metrics mess, you know, that companies are built on and how things are designed.
This is a radical shift in the user interface and experience, like you were saying, and I think that I've been dreaming up a interface for the last couple months myself. And a big problem with me executing that project is it is basically a Apple-sized project. You need some of the best designers and engineers out there in order to really make this technology radically available to as many people as possible, especially without just one of the departments at Google or Apple or Facebook just being like, oh, did you see that? Let's all dedicate a crap load of resources to that, which is also fine because at least it starts the domino effect across. But at the same time, you want to kind of keep, as someone that views themselves as more ethically or morally grounded in many ways, philosophically grounded, globally grounded, consciously grounded, like, can we just steer the bull with our own power and not just be like, it's fine, you take over. So in this sense, I want to build this out, and I have this massive vision for it. And there's so many different ways to be able to string it together visually that's pleasing. When you log into Facebook, you're sent to your news feed. What if you were rather sent to just a quick refresher on like, Alan, do you remember moving back to the Bay Area 6 years ago? And it shows you a couple photos of you moving to the Bay, and then it's like, we noticed that you haven't connected to these people that you have 120 mutual friends with. And it shows you these 3 people's faces, and it's like, would you like to reach out to any of them right now?
Yeah, they're doing a little bit with memories and some other stuff.
Yeah, but it's been so sprinkled in there that, and then also on, like, there's so many other options with Gmail and the way that
there's a really cool product that the founder is going to, and CEO is going to be speaking at the Transformative Tech Conference. It's called Trip, and basically what it is it's you pick your state that you want to experience, and it's it's a game, it's a VR experience, but as you're going through it, the photos and the music and the things that are integrated are things that you associate with happiness, or that you associate with, also it's like people, one of the things that I love about what they're doing is they're going to allow people to also do sadness. Yeah. It's because there's something about nostalgia, about that, that relationship, that period of time. And that's okay, because a lot of this, this is not about programming humans.
Over and over again can cause a lot of suffering.
Well, it's not about programming humans to not have emotions. It's not about that. It's about helping people have the skill in order to process and understand what's happening.
Navigate.
And to navigate it. It's like, anyone who is an adult is you are going to have, heartbreak, disappointment, betrayal, like your best friend, is gonna, when you're 6, is gonna pick a new best friend, these things happen. But it's how you deal with it and the meaning that you make, and the self-awareness that you have. And so, to get back to the means on the 3 parts of, need, demand, and means, what's happening now, especially with the exponential technologies, and so, like all of the things, AI, 3D printing, networks and sensors, and like everything else that's exponential, is now allowing us to have a kind of a portability, sensing, it's like there's things like, I've seen things like, you can, for example, you can pick up heart rate, not heart rate variability, it's not good enough yet, but you can pick up heart rate through the eye.
That's crazy.
Through like a camera in the eye, because you can't see it and I can't see it. But it's like our faces change colors with our heartbeat. It's very minimal.
Yeah.
But a computer can pick it up.
The blood has to pump to the extremity of the skin.
Yeah, area. And so now heart rate variability, there's too much artifact in it right now. It's like, because heart rate and heart rate variability are not the same. But that's a math problem. And we know what happens to math problems in the era of exponential tech, right? Yeah. It's only a matter of time. And so, one of my favorite quotes is Joey Ito has got this great quote where he says that, 100 years from now, technology should be indistinguishable from nature. And I love that, because it suggests as a design imperative that we move it to the background. A lot of people are so, when they hear well-being and tech, they're like, oh, those 2 things are opposed, and that is only the current situation, because we haven't designed it better. And we're in charge of that. It's like tech is not deterministic. We design it. So we could design it with the intention that it goes to the background, so this stuff goes to the foreground. You know, and that is like, that's a design principle. Or people are like, you know, well, what if I lose the, you know, if you're always telling me what my heart rate variability is, what if I lose the ability, because one of the superpowers you get in meditation is like a real sense of state. And what if I lose the ability to do that? It's like, well, when you got that first bike, when you got that banana bike when you were a kid with the training wheels, you never expected to have the training wheels on 20 years later. They're not designed to stay on. We just design them, let's design it to take it off. And then after you have that level of skill, then there's something else if you're worried about like, what is the product roadmap? This is all design, right? And so, you know, people are getting like, you know, justifiably, you know, bent out of shape over, you know, the phone, but getting bent out of shape over this without thinking about what we could do is like getting bent out of shape over the stone wheel. It's like, you know, or today getting bent out of shape about vanilla ice. It's like, it's over, you know? It's like you should be looking ahead. We need to be looking ahead and designing what we need and how do we establish, you know, my framework is, you know, assessment, the assessment power that this technology can, the assessment power that this technology can provide for us, amplification as a great, you know, possibility for how we interact with AI and how we use AI to amplify human, you know, human skills and the human soft skills. So Centaur therapists, Centaur mentors, how we do knowledge transfer. Yep. You know, and then enhancing our natural, you know, understanding. So like one of my favorite examples is a heart rate variability training at the Santa Clara Police Department. And so they used physical sensors to help them train to be able to feel their heart rate variability, so they knew when they were, you know, going into, when they were getting overstressed. And the quote that I think was the most telling was one of the police officers said, you know, I've done a lot of psychological training, but the physical component of this made it so real to me that I use it every day. You know, and so people say, when people look at a study that says dogs are empathetic, and they're like, oh, someone did the science on that. Well, there's something about measurement that makes it real for humans. Yeah. And we're so good with feedback. We're like feedback processing machines. And so when we get feedback.
Some of us better than others.
Yeah. Yeah, well, or signals, feedback that we're willing to accept. Let's say it that way. But learning how to talk is a feedback system. Learning how to walk, like gravity is a great feedback system. So we're feedback processing machines. And so, you know, the ability to get feedback on our internal state in a UI UX that's not distracting, that's supportive, that helps us understand what's going on. Yeah. Like that would unlock so much potential.
I've noticed that you've been sitting for 15 minutes. You should stand up and stretch. You know, there's so many easy ones that just come to mind. And
And then that last part about connecting, because, you know, if you think about the problems that are facing mankind, and, you know, there's a lot that we know that we just don't have the will to do, but there's a lot that we don't know, and a lot to be discovered. And you know, when you look at the future of work, and this is going to the urgency and then I'll shush, but you know, when you look at the future of work and the importance of creativity and collaboration, and you think of all those things, one of the things that they're built on is they're built on trust. And if you know, and in the old school way of things, doing things, when companies were silos, you know, you had plenty of time to get to know one person or your team or whatever. But the way things, because from a, you know, the consumer space, you know, Sarah in Kansas City doesn't care if the person who runs marketing is different than the person who runs customer service. Like, she doesn't care. You know, it's all one thing to her. And so if she has a bad experience, it doesn't matter who was in charge of that. So what's happening on the company side is that people are realizing they can't run organizations in silos anymore. They have to be integrated teams. So you're seeing lots of teams, and people are having to come together and move apart and come together and move apart. And also just, you know, most startups, you know, many startups die because of the team, not necessarily because of they had the wrong bet. And so this ability to like establish trust, a lot of it's based on self-trust. And self-trust comes from a combination of who you think you are and having gone through processes of understanding that. But also, like, self-knowledge comes from, you know, what your body says, and that we can get at that with transformative tech, and then also what your behavior says. And that's where, like, you know, what did you really do? Because a lot of times who we think we are, or what we think we're doing and what we're actually doing are not the same thing. And if we had visibility in that, we'd be like, oh, I'm not actually doing that. Because there's a bunch of, you know, there's a bunch of stuff that shows that human memory is totally faulty.
Yeah, and when we try and quantify our own actions, we typically think that we're doing something that we're following through on when we're actually not in many ways. So it's good to get objective feedback about what the mirror on myself. You just listed so many important things. I can't even recall. Speaking of
well,
faulty
I wanted
memory,
to ask you a question. Like,
what?
Like
30? 45. Oh, thank you, Eddie.
Man, and we're just kind of, oh man.
Nichol,
we haven't even really, like, we're just surface.
Well, this is what happens when you are explaining all these different things of such complexity for the first time to me at this level, and I find it to be just super inspirational. I'm really excited for the Academy and all of the students that are going to be coming in from around the world that are going to be getting mentorship and hopefully executing their ideas. It's just definitely scratching the surface. I really appreciated you teaching us about things like, you know, TRIP as well, these sort of...
Yeah, that's Nenea Reeves, and she is badass.
Badass. What's her name?
Nenea Reeves.
Nenea Reeves. Yeah, and just, you know, that reminds me a lot of these kind of like, that's just the simulation. That's, you know, why we call the show this, is because it's not just related to simulation theory, and it's not just related to, you know, if we're alone in the cosmos, and it's not just related to a complete VR simulation where it's indistinguishable and stuff, but even something like simulating a state of happiness or a state of frustration or whatever the state is, and just showing you what that's like and just reminding you what that's like is just, it's just a good way to have a mirror. And we don't have enough mirrors, we don't have enough of these sort of like objective measurements for well-being, joy, prosperity, etc. And I think that, you know, you're really at that key. You're kind of like the key. I don't think I know other people in Silicon Valley that are as much of a key to this as you are. So thank you. So thank you. We've had the blessing to feature a lot of people, but, you know, nobody really speaks about it as, you know, multidisciplinary as you do, and I love that. There's so much more to unpack. Is there another key thing that we should unpack on our way?
Yeah, well, I want to say why the sense of urgency.
Yeah.
And how much time I think we have. I think that we have roughly 10 to 15 years.
Before what would happen if we didn't have a sense of urgency? Well,
to up-level the social and emotional skill level of the human race.
I agree with you. That's a good way to put it.
That's the time that we have. So I have a sense of urgency.
Before there could be a massive sort of, what?
Well, you know, it's like that's when you're going to see that's rough estimates, that's when you're going to start to see major job transition.
And that's when the 47% of these repetitive jobs are starting to massively shift to automation.
Shift.
Yeah.
And so, but I also, you know, it's like 10 years in tech is like 1,000 years today. You know, like it's moving so fast. So
yeah, it's 10 years in from like 2020 to 2030 will be like as much technological advance as like 1900 to 2000.
Yeah, and there's so much. There's like other stuff that, you know, is happening, like, you know, the ability to do deep brain stimulation. You know, there's so many advances that are happening. And so I'm incredibly optimistic, and it really is because of this confluence of need, demand, and means. We finally have that. So we can actually do something. We can do something about it. And we should, because I think, you know, there isn't, and I say this often in my talks because I feel so strongly about it, but, you know, there is no nobler purpose for technology than to bring peace to the mind of mankind. And I want that for us because, one, I feel a responsibility to do a proper handover
Yeah,
I don't
feel
have
that
kids,
too.
but
I don't either.
You know,
I feel that
I want to
same
do a
thing.
proper handover to the children of the world. And two, it's like, you know,
Bless you for thinking that way. I don't think enough people think that way. I think
know,
that same way.
Well,
Yeah.
and then just the curiosity, like my best and my worst trait, you know, is my curiosity. There's a whole cosmos out there for us.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that we can solve the problems that we have. I think that the state of the human mind is the key to it. You know, I think if we can bring the fear level down, put some of the fires out, raise the skill level up,
Yeah.
you know, and then, you know, unlock some bigger levels.
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely totally doable.
I like the transformative tech level that's being unlocked. Yeah. And I like your sense of urgency. I like your macro view on things. I like how you look from the moon at Earth and you kind of see what's going on across all the disciplines, because you see the issue with mental health, and you see the issue with automation, and then you see the issue of this lacking socio-emotional awareness and thriving, and that we all have a sense of urgency around it, and you know, and bless the pursuits at which you're tackling this through. Yeah, the transformative tech pursuit's a really good one to address this. Might even be, you know, the best one. And so, in order for us to help push marbles in that direction, I think a really good way of doing so is to, you know, check out the links in the bio, but also just get involved in general with attending the conference, getting involved in the academy. Maybe supporting the lab in ways. And
I think one thing I want to end with, you know, it's like sometimes when people hear me talk about this, they're like, they still, if it's new to them, they think it's a theory. It's not a theory. We've done a list for the last couple of years called the Transformative Tech 200, and those are only 200 companies that we think are really cool. You know, and so there are real products. There are so many real products in this category.
Like our mutual friend, Harpreet.
Yes.
Yeah, Harpreet Rai and Oura Ring.
Yeah.
Measuring your heart rate variability and your heart rate and your sleep cycles, all they're just wearing through a very thin, small ring throughout the day and at night. And it's really, you know, having people like that kind of take the stage and speak about, you know, human health and transformation into understanding oneself.
We put sleep in because if you can't sleep, you can't have well-being. Like, it's not available to you if you can't sleep. And so sleep is a category that we track.
Yeah. Nichol, I just can't, you know, it's so difficult to actually figure out like how you know, we would just scratch the surface. It's so difficult to be able to dive deeper into transformative technology.
We didn't even talk about human consciousness. We didn't talk about human consciousness. We didn't talk about group flow and how that could sort of like completely unlock teams and humanity. We didn't talk about struggle versus suffering. Struggle is good. Suffering, you know, I think we can do something about that. I guess we'll have to do another. Yeah. We'll have to have part two.
Yeah, part two will have to happen before the conference. Yeah, let's make it happen before the conference. Just another thing that really came to mind throughout is that you really made it clear that there needs to be some sort of an augmentation in the interface and the experience that we have with technology, and you know, this sort of vision that's in mind about it is just the way that we engage with technology, just being so much more, you know, three-dimensional rather than, you know, two-dimensional. Static screen is a three-dimensional, and using your hands and using your voice and being able to pull things apart and send them off physically, you know, and send that way, and you know, increase the size of something, paint it blue with the beautiful wheel that pops up, and it changed the size. You know, it's just the way that we engage with this stuff is just so. It feels primordial compared to what is the next iterations. And I want to build the next iterations, and I don't want someone else to build it, because I think that other people are going to stumble ethically as they build it. And I think there are people like you that won't, but I think there's interestingly enough, there's, like you were saying, there's so many people at companies right now, like Salesforce and like LinkedIn and all these other places, that would thrive as entrepreneurs. So another thought in my head was like, you know, the Teal Fellowship of like getting the kids out of that when they're 18, 19 and just taking them into entrepreneurship. I was thinking like, it would be equally as fun to be like, yo, people that work at all these technology companies, you probably have $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 in your savings accounts because you get paid $5K a month or more. So really, you have the best potential pretty much to be able to drop what you're doing at this major company and go and start something in transformative technology or in biotech or in whatever field, and there's this massive support network of people that would love to help you succeed in that pursuit. They themselves have like a 1 year runway in their savings, at least from what they've saved up at these companies. They just need to be taught
and they
how to
can
work
all
frugally.
follow along in the program as well. So, you know, we're accepting people who don't currently have companies because, you know, I think a lot of great people are working other places right now who will, you know, like someone is going to build something extraordinary in this space, and today they are working somewhere else.
Yep. And then the people that come into the academy that are not selected by you, is there still a way for them to go through the process, or they have to be selected by you?
Well, I mean, we are selecting,
Yeah.
but we have 2 tracks that the people that we select, we, you know, go to, and people say which track they want to be on. But if someone is selected for the innovator track, then they're able to follow along. We're going to have a group Slack, and they'll be connected to the community. They'll be able to, you know, talk with people around the world. We have country managers. We have over 40 country managers, and several of the country managers are organizing live events in their cities to do like founder dating. So people who are not on teams but want to can meet each other, and maybe magic happens.
Maybe magic happens.
Maybe
yeah.
magic happens. You know,
It's basically marriage.
Yeah, it's totally.
Yeah.
So we're not, you know, doing matching, but we're creating the space for matching.
Good.
So that, you know, people can find one another.
I was just thinking, is there another big one on here that we should show? A big slide that's really important. I mean, you list so many important things. So how the fuck do we cover all of this? So this is such a drastic need for episode 2.
Yeah.
Nichol, my mind is just blown. My heart feels like just it's closer to, you know, I think it's closer to the spirit. I think it's closer to humanity. I think it's closer to you. I think it's closer to your mission and values. And it's not every single show where I feel that way. And so it's nice. Yeah. So much love. I want to ask you just these couple classic questions that we ask people on the way out. Do you think we're alone in the cosmos?
No.
And unpack that a little for us.
Well, there's just so many, the cosmos is so big, I can't imagine that we are the only life in the entire cosmos. That doesn't mean, you know, I can't imagine we're the only life. I am also, like, we've got plenty to take care of here. So I don't need to have proof tomorrow one way or the other, but I believe it is likely that there is life on other planets.
Yep. And then, do you think we're in a simulation?
No, I don't. Well, I don't think we're in a simulation, though I do think we're in a game.
Unpack that a little.
Well, I mean, you know, I spent a lot of my life on the back end of World of Warcraft. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, in a role-playing game, you go on experiences, and you take your avatar on experiences, and through these experiences, you level. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that a friend of mine, when he asks someone how old they are, he doesn't say, "How old are you?" He says, "What level are you?" Which sounds so much cooler. So if you're level 57, If you're level
So
68,
good.
you know,
So
my
this kind of brings me to
auntie is,
what-
you know, level 70 something, you know, like that's, you know, that's sounds so much cooler.
Deo Resi taught us about how he thought that a lot of people were at a very low level. Society's very much like a bunch of toddlers and children, and there's only a couple teenagers around, and there's nobody that's an adult in society. And it's and we need people that are adults and grandparents to help guide civilization. And so with a bunch of toddlers running around, and then now we have AI and warfare and all this shit, it's going to be really tough. Anyway, continue. I like what you're saying. You're in a role-playing game. Tell us more.
Yeah, and it's also, so I mean, I have a pretty intense meditative practice. One of the reasons why I start my presentations, many of them out with Homo Deus, is because with Sapiens, Yuval Harari blew my mind.
Yes.
And you know, when I read that book, basically one of the net takeaways was that, you know, culture is not solid.
Yeah.
You know,
correct.
And at the same time, I hang out with a lot of neuroscientists, and just how much the brain fills in of our experience. You know, we're kind of, you know, so if culture's not solid, we're kind of creating culture on the fly. Our brain is creating reality on the fly.
Yeah.
And then deep Buddhist philosophy with the sense doors and a bunch of other stuff, which we don't have to go into, reality is also being created on the fly. And nothing is solid and everything is impermanent. And so when all of that came into my brain at the same time, instead of feeling a sense of, you know, bad vertigo, I was like, oh my God, we can change it. We can design it, we can change it, we can do, like, we don't have to accept what this is.
Yeah.
And so that was really that was super inspiring. So I don't think we're in a simulation, and if we aren't, you know, unless we're gonna like crawl up and change the. Well, a simulation is like we're in some sort of holodeck, and there's like someone else out there who's running it.
It doesn't need to be the definition.
Okay.
There can be tons of different definitions.
Well, I think the reality is way more than what we see and experience.
Yes.
And that we haven't unlocked that, but I think that we will at some point in human experience. I know that you know, from meditative practices, and you know, and I follow Dan Brown and some other amazing teachers, but just, you know, the things that I've been able to experience in my own reality.
Yeah.
I definitely don't think that, you know, reality is as we commonly accept it, and I think that you know, as we understand more and more, I think science and our understanding of, you know, matter and the nature of reality will only continue to expand. So I don't think it's a simulation, but I do think that it's a game, and I think that it can be more. I think it can be easier to navigate. And I think that's one of the things that transformative technology can provide. Yeah,
that's a lot of what I'm writing about right now, is making it easier to navigate. Yeah, and that's, I think, very aligned in that sense. Last question. What do you think is the most beautiful thing in the world?
You. That is actually, you know, it's like I'm in a place in my practice where what I find to be true is that, I'm getting a little choked up about this, what I find to be true is that if you actually look at someone and you really see them, no matter who they are,
it takes a while.
It doesn't have to.
But it takes silence usually. It takes silence and just looking at someone's eyes and just being vulnerable.
Well, if you really see a person, they don't even have to look at you. You can be people watching. But if you look and you really see someone, they become, like, you see that they are extraordinarily beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, like, humans are so beautiful.
That's that activity. You just walk around at an event where everybody's just, you walk and then you stop, find a person closest to you, and you just look at them in the eyes, and you don't speak, and you just keep looking at them in the eyes, and then you just become.
That can be kind of creepy.
It can be.
Unless they know that that's what's going on.
That's what everybody in the room's doing.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
You didn't mean like any event.
Yeah, you just said any event. People would be like,
I was like,
what the fuck?
Maybe not.
Yeah, but when everyone's on that same page, like 100
it's
people in the room,
beautiful.
and you're doing that, that what you're describing is exactly that. And I'm glad that you bring that up, because I think it restores some of the humanity in us, and I think a lot of the division that occurs is when we lose a sense of that humanity in other people.
Yeah, the bottom line is this, like, everybody, no matter where they are in the world, no matter what their culture is, everyone wants to be loved. Oh, this is the Maslow slide.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be loved, to connect, to belong, and to feel that they're having progress in their life.
Yes.
Towards something, whatever it is.
Yes.
Like, those are the things that people
love, connect, belong, and have progress towards something in their lives.
Yeah, that's it. And we all share it.
Yeah.
And I find the most beautiful, what I find to be the most beautiful is like humans. So beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if like caterpillars think that way. That they want to love, connect, belong, and have some sort of progress.
I do not know.
I wonder what is that brain sort of size to mass, ratio
of having that want.
Of having that want. Like, do humans? But do dolphins have it? Do dogs?
I don't know. But like one of the things
that's
interesting, you see on this hierarchy, most people believe that, or most people think that the hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy, ended with self-actualization.
But there is self-transcendence.
Yeah, and he actually he just published the rest.
Baked in there though, isn't? Wouldn't you say?
No. Well, here's the difference.
Yeah.
So self-actualization is like what everybody in the Bay does, right? Like making the things happen that you want to happen.
Totally.
Self-transcendence is when you realize that self that you actualized, you don't need anymore. And so, to your question about are we in a simulation or in the game, there is a point where, there's a point with self-transcendence when you don't need that self that you actualized.
Yeah.
And you realize that, that you don't need that, you actually transcend the game.
Yeah.
And then it's a whole, then there's a whole nother level.
There's a whole nother level. I love that. You walk up to people and you're like, what level are you at? Yeah. Nichol, I can't stop thinking about the show. This has been fantastic.
Thank you for having me.
Nichol, it's been such a freaking pleasure.
I knew we were going to have fun, because all of our conversations are fun, so I knew we were going to have fun.
But you blew my mind this time, and you blew my mind. This is so cool. And okay, I'm so grateful. Thank you, and thank you everybody for tuning in. If you guys had a good time, definitely comment with your thoughts below. Go and check out the links in the bio to Transformative Technology, to the conference, to the academy, and to the lab. Go check it out, please. Join in the conversation, subscribe. Also, build something with this content. Don't just consume it. Go make other video content. Go write about it. Go start companies with it. You know what to do. Go create. Join us on Patreon. Help us support this, grow it, impact it. Help us, launch off more of the transformative technologies that are going on. We would love your assistance with that. Thank you so much to Eddie, our producer and director.
Thank you.
Much love to Eddie. Thank you. And thanks everybody, and we'll see you soon. Peace.
Thank you.
Wow.